So it's like you take your emotions to the highest levels and lowest lows. Then after that, it's over, right? We can part as friends. And I always tell everybody that sports, outside of religion, in politics, that get those same emotions, evoke the same emotions out of people. But after sports, after 3 hours, it's done. Like you could play your bitter rival, and for 3 hours, you just hate that person or just want to just crush that person. But then the minute it's over, there's automatic respect, and it's like, man, thanks. We had a great game. Really look forward to the next time.
Welcome to the New World Podcast, where we delve into the ever changing and accelerating pace of global change and its impact on our lives. I'm your host, John Paul Flores, broadcasting live from the New World Studio. Today, we're diving into the world of AI and automation. As an enthusiast and expert in lead generation, I will guide you through understanding and leveraging these technologies for your business and for your personal use. And don't forget, AI and automation might be unstoppable forces, but that doesn't mean you are powerless. Tune in to learn how to make them work for you and not the other way around. But first, let's meet our guest. Welcome to the New World Podcast, where we navigate the changing world around us. I'm your host, Jampo Flores, specializing in lead generation and AI automation, here to help you understand how our world is changing and what it means for you. Today, we're joined by Robert Kraft, the founder and CEO of Atlas World Sports. Robert has been at the forefront of revolutionizing the sports betting industry through personalized user experiences and cutting edge AI technology. Tune in as we dive into his journey and the innovations driving Atlas World Sports and what the future holds for sports fans and bettors alike. Robert, it's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you, John Paul. It's an honor to be here as well. I'm looking forward to talking Atlas World Sports and sports betting and AI.
It's amazing. And before we begin on the in depth questions, because I do have some, can you share with us who Robert is? What's your experiences, your expertise, and what keeps you busy these days?
Yeah, so quick. I'll keep it quick just to keep it moving, so we can get to the good stuff for the people, right? But born in the Midwest of the United States, Detroit, Michigan, and then moved to Chicago and got up to Milwaukee, where I finished high school there, and went to played college football, American football, that is, at John Carroll University. And after graduating, I had a great opportunity to get involved with the NFL Combine as a potential player, as a punt returner, kick returner, and ended up in talks with the XFL back when that was going on. Now it's changed in so many leagues, but ended up playing arena football for 1 year because the NFL, the 5 teams we were talking to with my agent, they didn't quite give me the contract, and so I thought I'd go play arena football for a year. Was in Charleston, South Carolina, and at the same time I got licensed in stocks and bonds and insurance, Series 7, 66 life and health. And, I always loved business. I always loved, finances and understanding the, mechanisms of leverage and appropriately doing deals. And I wasn't quite sure exactly what route I wanted to go, but I always thought entrepreneurial route would be it. But I thought maybe the fundamentals there would be good. And so then I kind of, after the football door came slamming closed quickly 1 year after being out of college, and I was a business major, and then it was all right. Let's take all that energy that I put into football and let's put that into business. And got into direct marketing, got into just a small family business, and figured out how to start kind of write my own business plan and launch that when I was 25, and then learned on mergers and acquisitions and acquiring companies and roll-ups, and then had successes and failures through that, and then from there got into really heavy digital marketing and really focused on the internet type deal. And then from there, when the Supreme Court legalized sports betting in the United States in May of 2018, that was immediately when I had that epiphany moment, if you will, where it was so obvious to me that a lot of people were going to probably try to create a sports book if they will, if you will, or perhaps you know, thinking that they could be a Vegas type of provider online or whatever it might be. And I literally right then just had that clarity of, look, we've got to figure out how to sell the pickaxes to the gold miners, the Levi's jeans to the gold miners, if you will, and be a partner to the sports books, the leagues, and everything else, like Expedia for sports books. And that was that concept. So that brought me to where we are today.
That's amazing. I knew that you had experience in marketing, but I didn't know about the stuff that you actually played football yourself. That's amazing.
Mhm.
When you were playing college football, did you think that's when you actually fell in love with sports?
I fell in love with sports. The minute I could, throw a ball or catch or compete. I love competition. I think that's really what it is. And I was fortunate enough that being athletic, that I could pursue that. However, I loved playing chess, and I still do to this day, just as much as playing a game. I like the physical challenge that comes with football and the emotional, because certainly there's a lot of ups and downs you have to grind through. And to me, football, the reason football was so great was it's emotional, it's mental, and it's physical. So, I wasn't playing as a big guy. I was, 5'9", 195 pounds, but fast and strong and tough. And I'm going against guys that are 6'3", 240-pound linebackers, and they're trying to, knock my head off. But I could outthink them, and I could also maneuver them, as long as, I had space to play. So to me, I like that, because even though sometimes maybe I'm better at certain, attributes than maybe other players I was going against, but it's a team thing, right? You need 11 guys against 11 guys. So if my team wasn't doing their job, or I wasn't, it hurts everything. So those lessons for me from football, and nothing against any other sports out there, individual sports or other team sports, but I've never played a sport that is, as critical for developing, the teamwork and camaraderie, and the trust inside of each other, the way a football team does. You just really have to lay it on the line for each other, because if I'm not willing to take a hit for a guy behind me, he gets, blown up and potentially injured as well. And you learn that, like, if you miss a pick in basketball, for example, a guy's shot gets blocked, but he doesn't get the wind knocked out of him. He's not hurt. There's just this whole different component. And I always looked at business, like the transition then to business from sports, for me was very natural, because it's really team above self. And if you can figure that out when you're building a company, and getting, all of us on the same page, I looked at it like that's everything, right? Like your mission might change at times, but as long as there's that trust there, as long as you're willing to lay it out there for each other, a business will survive, because a business is only as good as the people that are involved in it, is the reality. And you could have the greatest mousetrap in the world that you built, but if you're not willing to work together and get that mousetrap out to the marketplace, and do it day in and day out, day in and day out, day in and day out, over and over and over, and try to get better every day, you're going to get beat eventually, or you're going to beat yourself. So to me, sports was everything, and it's really just about competition, and that underlying, that desire that they talk about all the time, that pilot light that burns the furnace, and that type of thing. Well, that's what really gets me going, is whether it's being in sports. And yeah, trust me, I wish I could still play football to this day. I'd probably be in the hospital if I took a hit anymore, but I still like to go to the gym. I still like to work out. Now it's more, the pickleball, tennis, softball type stuff, the recreational leagues, to keep myself busy outside of work. But the competition is still there, and it's respect for others and your opponents, and I think that's very important in business.
You know, I like the way you said that you have different advantages because you're not as big as the other guys. And I think that's a perfect analogy for business as well. If you look at
Mhm.
these bigger companies, bigger brands, they can change strategies or do something new as fast as you can because they're scared of something going wrong. So, you have that advantage. And, that's a great analogy. And you founded a company called Atlas World Sports, as shown here. Can you tell us more about it, more specifically, and why you think it would be great for anyone who might be listening to check it out?
Yeah, thank you. So Atlas World Sports, that was really, the pickaxes and Levi's jeans to the gold miners of saying, look, now that the United States legalized sports betting, they repealed PASPA, which was the professional and amateur sports betting um, law that outside of Nevada and a couple other states, you couldn't bet anywhere or you couldn't create a sports book. And they said, look, the U.S. government made a good decision. The Supreme Court, they ruled 6-3 to overturn it. They made a good decision because, quite frankly, people were placing bets through, say, offshore books in various countries or figuring out workarounds, which was not, safe. But it also, there's money moving around, and we're not getting tax dollars out of it as the U.S. So they said, look, let's regulate it, and if people are going to bet, they're going to bet, but we might as well, allow people to do what they're doing and tax it. Because it's going on anyway. And so then let's prevent some of the back alley, dirty sports book stuff, if you will. And that was really the thing. And so when I saw that, I thought, okay, what is Europe doing? That was my first thought, because Europe has been legal the whole time, but they've also been very advanced in their online and mobile sports betting, as have some of the other countries, Asia, for example, a few other countries and regions, but in particular Europe, London and Dublin were always kind of the sports betting hubs of the world, if you will. And, so I just looked at that. I said, look, let me go travel over there. So I'd go to conferences and started learning the European sports betting and what's going on and figuring out their models. And I really was just checking it against what I thought would be the perfect model in the United States, the Expedia for sports fans and sports books, if you will. And it confirmed it. And I wanted to check, and I took my time to make sure it wasn't, confirmation bias. I'm not trying to make sure I'm right because I just want to be right, but is this working? And then started studying Better Collective. Better Collective is headquartered over in Europe and publicly traded. And, they've been a partner to all the sports books throughout Europe, and there are a handful of others over there as well. So it proved the model out. I studied their models and said, yeah, we could totally build this. So then that was it. That was the genesis of it. And as difficult as the pandemic was for everybody around the world, the benefit to that was right when I finished kind of the business model and knowing exactly what we're going to do. So we kind of started, just developing code from scratch. We opened our office in for development, and right then it was kind of right as the pandemic was hitting, and so a couple folks said, "Hey, what should we do? What happens?" And I just said, "Well, here's the thing: if sports don't come back, then we're all in big trouble. That means the world is over, right? But assuming it does, we're actually going to be ahead of people because we're going to develop and build this platform, this app store, platform, as well as website and mobile website platform. So we'll have this ready by the time the world's kind of come back on board, and that's exactly what happened. And that's brought us to where we are today, where we're only 1 month. So this is early August of 24. We are recording this, and we're very much looking forward to football season because the NFL season is a big one for everybody, as is college football.
By the way, respect the fact that you actually went to Europe to study things about what you need to do. That's big commitment right there. And
That's it. You got to be all in, right? You have to be all in. That's the rule.
absolutely. And why they call it Expedia of sports? Can you tell us more about that?
Well, and that's probably more of an American-based brand. I'm not sure how prevalent Expedia is around the world, but a travel app or brand, Trivago, Travelocity, Priceline, Hotels Tonight. Any of those apps around the world or regions, wherever folks are, where you're able to see all the travel options at once. Maybe all the flights. I want to fly from here to London. Let me look on this. American Airlines has this option, United, Delta, et cetera, et cetera. Well, I like this cost and timing the best, so I'll take that. That was the concept. Really, we can do that same thing for sports books like Caesars, FanDuel, DraftKings, MGM, any sports book that's publishing numbers on any game, we can show it like a menu at the same time because not all the sports books are going to have the same exact spreads, lines, odds as any other. So, if you're looking to bet on your team, your favorite team, the Green Bay Packers, the you know, uh, you know, Dallas Cowboys, well, you want to get the best spread possible then. So if you're picking up a half a point by using Caesars and all the others are a half a point less, well, you're certainly going to place that bet with Caesars because that's an advantage to you. So that's what we really do. We publish it all at the same time and it's live and it changes. And we're partners with every sports book. We're also partnered with all the leagues from the NFL to Major League Baseball to National Basketball Association, all the way down to UFC, Ultimate Fighting, and boxing, and World Tennis Association. So we get all of those odds, and we can show live scores and stats, as well as the news stories that are being published on the players of the team. So the whole point is be a totally comprehensive central nervous system, if you will, for any user really, and the books, because the books love us because we help drive traffic to them in an agnostic way. We don't really care if you place your bet with Caesars or DraftKings. We want you as a user to have the best opportunity to have a positive experience, and we feel that we're a very good steward of that.
So basically, you have the user here and the Atlas world here, and then you show them all of the different spreads, odds from different sports betting sites. Is that correct?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Yep,
That's amazing.
absolutely, 100%.
And do you think this is your biggest advantage to other competitors out there?
Well, our biggest advantage is being built as we speak with our team. So we've got about another 18, well, really 24 months of development in the pipeline that we're currently doing. I think our biggest advantage is we are fast, nimble, and very, very hungry. And we love this space, and we know the opportunity, certainly in the United States as well as all of the Americas, for expansion is massive. So we are data experts. We're also marketing experts and software development experts as well. So we look at the combination of that, and we don't have a publicly traded company say that has bought us, and so we don't have to sit there and be like the turtle versus the tortoise and the hare type of old the old anecdote. We can go and sprint out and then stop and reassess and sprint and stop versus the guys that have been acquired by, the publicly traded companies. They're really just trying to get, churn users to drive, dollars in. And we're really looking at it, if we can step back and hold on that and say, how do we make sure we're the best value in creating the best product out there? That will all take care of itself with our investors and all the future users, because we wrote our software. We can drop it into any country, change the language, change the sport inputs. So if we go to Mexico, we go to, say, Colombia, we go to Argentina, change it to as Spanish as the main language input with English as the secondary, but then soccer is maybe the main sport that we're showing all the time. Their regional soccer professional leagues, and then maybe they like Major League Baseball behind that or NFL or whatever. But the user ultimately can determine it. So we also see the hyper personalization, and coming from the marketing background that I do, it's ultimately about giving control to each user without it creating a menu of options that are way too vast, right? Like when you walk into a restaurant, there's something refreshing about saying, I want a cheeseburger, a hamburger, a hot dog, or french fries versus like, I can get anything that I want. I can get this Greek food, I can get this Chinese food, I can get this Mexican food, I can get this Italian food, and you get locked up on decision making. So we want to figure out how to continue to whittle it down using artificial intelligence to know, say you, for example, John Paul, like John Paul loves, this team. So why are we showing them, something else first all the time? You might love the New York Yankees. So great. Every time he opens the app, let's make sure we have some Yankees information for him right away. So you don't have to search for it, but I might be the Milwaukee Brewers or Green Bay Packers or whatever. And so then every time I open it, give me my Green Bay Packers information, even if it's the off season or whatever else. And each user can continue to customize it from there. But then, at the same time, we have the artificial intelligence inside as well that we are simulating every game 10,000 times. So the NFL season coming up, for example, those games, we're simulating them 10,000 times. We're going to tell you who we think is going to win based on our models and also all the player props and how many touchdowns, what quarterback is going to make. Patrick Mahomes is going to have 3.5 touchdowns this game or whatever. So, our real strength ultimately is in our team, going back to that football, metaphor earlier, and just a continuous improvement, because the day you're not trying to get better and work harder to outpace the competition, that's the day that you should get out of the business.
What I like about what you do is it moves kind of like the sports news that shows you what you need to know, plus giving you the ability to bet on those places with the best odds for you. So that's an amazing
Right.
thing. And what I like about you, and as you mentioned, you're not as like those other guys who have been bought up by this publicly traded company, is that you don't have to follow the rules of the shareholders who doesn't actually know about sports. So I think that's your
Yeah.
advantage. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I mean, to that end, we've already had some major international companies that are trying to figure out how to give us a deal we can't refuse. So that is not what we didn't build this so that we could just work inside of those types of folks. But we also know we've built something that to a major corporation that has users and is trying to be cool and sexy, if you will. Pardon the expression, but that we have that. Like we're because you could plug us in anywhere, and we've built something that nobody else has out there. And sports is the only thing that anybody watches live anymore. Certainly in the United States, but it's very pervasive throughout the world. That really the only thing anybody tunes into to watch live is sports, a game, your favorite team, whatever the bowl of whatever it might be, whether it's the Super Bowl or it's the U.S. Open or it's Wimbledon or some cricket match that's going on between India and Pakistan that goes for 6 days. Well, you're watching that live. You're not recording that and watching it 2 weeks later the way we would a movie or something else. And all the TV guys, all the media guys know it. That's why in the United States, Amazon bid big time for the NFL, for Major League Baseball rights to broadcast as well as the NBA, and they're working on more. Same thing with Netflix is now finally going to do it this year in the United States. They're going to broadcast a couple games on Christmas, and I think it's two NBA games. It's either two NBA games or two NFL games. And I apologize, I don't have that information on the top of my head. But so many of these streamers now are trying to get all the live sports, and it's just a matter of time because we have an investment bank in Los Angeles that represents us, Del Morgan, and they're doing a fantastic job. And they have major players around the world that are talking to them to either buy us, invest in us, because we are right now at our Series A and we have a $25 million offering out there. And we have some of the largest funds in the world that we already are in our second meeting with them as a result of Del Morgan and their relationships and companies wanting to be a part of Atlas World Sports. So we're at a very good position, very interesting. We're at the entrepreneurial stage, but yet at the same time, we're either going to go, massive and IPO and make people tons of money, or somebody's going to buy us, and our current investors that are in are going to make a ton of money. But one way or another, we're very bullish because the market is just so perfect in the United States for what's going on, and that's regardless of the any kind of economic headwinds. So your timing with having me on this podcast is very fortuitous because of the fact that we have so many folks trying to invest in us for Series A. So we have a lot of negotiations going on right now. So timing is very interesting how we're sitting here together, John Paul.
By the way, if someone offers to buy you out of your own creation, would you accept it?
Well, that's a very loaded question. It's a tough one to answer. But look, everybody's got a price. We know our price is probably way well. It's going to be cheap for somebody that is big enough to afford it. It's going to be expensive for little guys trying to think that they can buy us. For an Amazon, for a Google, for a Facebook, a Twitter, Elon Musk, and he's got X, and they're doing all kinds of things now, and they want to get into sports betting big time. For them to buy us, that's a rounding error for them. But for some private equity firm that thinks they can get us for $50 million or whatever, not a chance.
That's amazing. And by the way, I just want to ask, how do you personally ensure that Atlas World Sports stats that you show is 100% accurate all the time?
The partners we work with are data providers. We're getting raw data that's happening on the field or in gameplay the second it is. So they actually have people in stadiums that are reporting it. And then they have auditing that goes on from their offices around the world. And these guys are all, we work with Stats, Sport Radar, um, Sport Data as well. We're working on a deal with them. And these guys all have offices throughout the world. So they're providing the same stats to NBC, to ESPN, to, any broadcasting around the world, quite frankly, CBC, BBC, whomever. Anytime you see the ticker at the bottom of the screen showing you scores and stats, that's who they're buying them from. NBC isn't providing those stats, or ESPN's not providing those stats. They're buying it from Sport Radar and Stats, same way we are. So we're getting it at the same time everybody else is, just like that. Boom, goal happens, we've got it. In fact, as we're talking, I have the Olympics on in the off to the right hand side on my screen in the office, and we get that data same time, actually before that it's actually on the TV, just because internet's faster than TV, as you know.
By the way, I just gotta want to go on the point where you said people watch sports live, and I can attest on how true that is. In the Philippines, I don't know if you know who Manny Pacquiao is. Eh,
I loved him.
yeah, very great guy. I think he was an eight.
Politician now, right?
Yeah, he ran for president, but he did not win. But he's a great guy. He built a lot of homes for a
Yeah.
lot of people here. Amazing guy.
Yeah.
And yeah, if there's a show where he's fighting, people watch it live to the point that the
Oh,
crime rate in the Philippines is flat out zero for a few hours.
yeah, because everybody's in. I mean, I remember his fights. Those fights were incredible when he and Floyd Mayweather were going to go back and
Yeah,
forth, and then and they couldn't figure out their dates, and they were negotiating. But I didn't miss a Manny Pacquiao fight. I didn't miss a Floyd Mayweather fight, and I never missed a Conor McGregor fight
yeah,
too. So the way the Irish would come to watch any Conor McGregor fight is the same way the Philippines all
yeah.
flew over to America to watch him fight in Las Vegas or whatever, and it's so cool. When you get that kind of pride and that backing, it's awesome. So yeah, I'm a big Pacquiao fan, and I think it's great what he did for your country, and love seeing the way he gives back to the community too.
Yeah, it's very. He tries to relax right now. He just goes on motorcycle rides most of the time. Just amazing.
Good for him. He deserves it.
Absolutely. And by the way, how many current users do you currently have for your apps, or and also the
Yeah, so
websites?
we're Yeah, so we're under 10,000
Yeah.
at this point, and because we're holding it down until we get our
Yeah.
first tranche in from Series A, and we just are getting into second round of negotiations and meetings with some of the big venture capital groups around the world. Actually, we have some folks out of Hong Kong reaching out to us, London, um, Dubai, because American sports betting and American brands, as you well know, John Paul, for being so gracious to reach out to me from the Philippines. And as I mentioned in our pre-call, my sister-in-law is from Manila and came to the United States, and they live in America. They live in Los Angeles now, and they have. She started her own company too. They're very entrepreneurial. A company called Spread the Love. They do organic peanut butter, which is amazing, nut butter, and they're killing it. They're doing great. And my brother-in-law, and so I have a soft spot in my heart for your country. And as I mentioned, my uncle and godfather did his medical school there at, you know, West Manila University, I believe is what it was. And he also played college basketball for the university there too, and had some fun. But I mean, when we're looking at all of this, we really just see that globally, the interest in the United States brand is always there. But then, especially right now, United States sports are like, awesome, right? Everybody tunes into the NBA around the world. And, the interest in the NFL is continually growing, globally. So these funds from Hong Kong and Dubai and London that are reaching out to Del Morgan to be a part of our Series A and beyond, they're very serious and they're very interested. And there are a lot more that are in queue. And it's really just because of what we've built, because of our team, but it's also because of the American ecosystem right now for sports betting. I mean, it's like this. It's a market that was already $250 billion a year that was illegal, and now it's legalized. That's above board, and now it's just going to grow from there. And so it's kind of an interesting market. So it's not like we're starting a new industry. It's an industry that was there, but we're just taking it above board and legalizing it, and we're just sitting in the middle, and we're going to direct traffic. And so we benefit as a result of it, and we benefit because the NFL is so great. And the reason all of the value of these franchises, the NFL teams have tripled in value over the last, say, 6, 7 years. It's because of the legalization of sports betting. So we're very confident in all of these funds from around the world that are reaching out and they want to be a part, because we also have big international plans. We could take this to any country, and we could just change language input and branding and sport input as well. And it'll go anywhere. It can be partnered with any sports book around the world. So we're very excited about what's going on.
Do you think the fact that there's a lot of AI innovations out there makes people crave sports because of how authentic and hard to fake it is?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I've never really thought about it that way, John Paul, but I really do think that is a very, very strong point, because you can't script. What the yesterday, and I know this podcast is coming out late, so I apologize to those folks, but the United States barely beat Serbia in the Olympic basketball game yesterday, for example. So LeBron James and Stephen Curry and Kevin Durant kind of had to turn it on at the end to, take out Djokovic and the team from Serbia, and they barely did it. I don't think you can script that kind of stuff, right? That drama, that's real drama. And after 3 hours, it's over. So it's like you take your emotions to the highest levels and lowest lows, but then after that, it's over, right? We can part as friends. And I always tell everybody that sports, outside of religion, and politics, that get those same emotions, evoke the same emotions out of people. But after sports, after 3 hours, it's done. Like, you could play your bitter rival And for 3 hours you just hate that person or just want to just crush that person. But then the minute it's over, there's automatic respect, and it's like, man, thanks, we had a great game, really look forward to the next time. You beat me this time, I'm going to get you next time, I'm going to work harder. And to your point, like, there's so much stuff that's fake or scripted, and there's nothing wrong with watching a great movie or a great series or TV show. We all love that stuff, but those are actors pretending to be real situations, whereas sports, it's real. It is, real. Those emotions are raw when you see people with those. So I think you bring up a really great point that it's one of the few things that I don't think can be really tainted.
Absolutely. You can maybe, play a role on how few players actually try to trash talk each other, but you cannot fake the fight itself.
Yeah,
That's one thing.
right.
Yeah. When you're
Right. When Manny
punching,
Pacquiao was taking those punches, those were real. And when he was giving those punches, those were
yeah,
real.
your brain turns off on that part of the stage. You just punch and
Yeah.
get punched. And it's crazy.
Right. Survival.
You're training
Survival.
for months and months just for a few minutes of fighting. That's where it
Right.
all is. That's crazy.
That's right.
And what's your favorite sports? I mean, you are a sports fan besides football, because I know you're probably gonna
Yeah.
answer that. So let's not have football on there. That's a
Yeah.
pretty
So
answer.
certainly football, certainly football. Golf, I love to play. And I think to me, what is so great about golf, I can, I could get around. My sister played college golf. She was a great golfer. She was the best in our family. She was captain of her college team, but our whole family could play really well. My mom won, championships back in the day, and so our family always competed at that. But the coolest thing to me, I can play with an 85-year-old guy or woman who is a 30 handicap, but they could beat me and take money off of me. If we're playing with our handicaps, even though I'm playing from the back tees, even though they're playing from the way front tees, and you can have a great time getting to know that person, seeing how they compete, seeing how they are as a person, and then enjoy a beverage afterwards, and a little bit of time. And I just think, to me, it's a unifying sport where you could have a 15-year-old kid, a 40-year-old man, and an 85-year-old couple, and you could have a really nice time on the golf course together, where you would never spend time with those people maybe necessarily otherwise if it wasn't for that setting. So I think golf is great from that standpoint, and I just love the competition, and it's such a mental game too. So to me, I think, kind of the way we were talking about chess earlier, like, it's just a mental game. You obviously have to hit the shot, but a lot of times when you miss a shot, it's maybe because your head wasn't really screwed on the right way. So it's good, and you can only blame yourself too. Can't blame your teammates.
So it's basically like the more physical version of chess, where it doesn't matter if you're the biggest,
Yeah.
if you're the weakest. What matters more
Mm.
is how good of a shot you are.
Yeah, that's a great point, John Paul, because you are kind of working it around the course. You're playing against the course, but you're also playing against your opponents. So you're trying to figure out, where should I hit it where I still have another shot after this, and that type of thing. But all the major American sports, so I always loved as well. Basketball, I played until the beginning of high school. Baseball, I played throughout all of high school. Now I play, rec softball as a, an adult. And so, honestly, the all the standard American sports, and of course, on the weekends, it's pool, billiards, that is, or darts, or ping pong, or table tennis, depending on how folks like to categorize it.
Yeah, other great player from the Philippines, Efren Bata Reyes, billiards. I don't know if you know him. The
Hmm.
magician,
Hmm.
crazy guy. I think 80-year old and still beating the best in the world.
Yeah, is he the 9 ball champion?
I think so. His name is Efren Bata Reyes. They call him the magician. So, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I know that name
yeah.
because I watch that every once in a while. I've got a feed where billiards comes in, and I love watching all those guys. It's hopefully I try to pick up some stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's your opinion on esports? Because it is getting some traction. I don't know if it's the same in US, but it is getting some traction.
Yep.
Is there betting on it, like how sports betting is?
Yeah, it's a really good question and one we get from time to time, certainly. So it's an interesting one for me to answer because it has picked up steam. Number one in the United States. To your question, it definitely has, and it's got this niche. The sports books don't love it for obvious reasons. It's tough to handicap, and how can you tell? And a lot of it is you're talking 15-year-olds to early 25-year-olds that are competing in these esports. So the challenge is like they're not making enough money. LeBron James is, I don't know what his salary is at right now, but $40 million a year or whatever he's making. You can't pay him to miss a free throw during a game, right? But a 15-year-old kid competing in esports and moving along and maybe trying to figure out how to get college paid for, all of a sudden somebody comes and says, "Hey, pay you $25,000 if you lose this," or whatever. I think there's too much opportunity. I think from what I understand, the sports books don't love it because there's too much of an opportunity for shenanigans to go on, if you will, and some meddling. Where professional sports in the United States, at least, are really tough, if not impossible, to rig. Because even in the NFL or Major League Baseball or any of these other sports, these guys are all making so much money. Saying you're going to give them $50,000 to fumble at the goal line, they go, "Are you kidding me? I'm making $10 million a year, and I would never lose my career for it." And they've also got all kinds of checks and balances to make sure that guys aren't getting might have been a possibility 40 years ago for rigging to happen every once in a while, but we just don't see it at all. And I think esports to us, and from what we know from the sports book, because if the sports books wanted us to carry it, quite frankly, we would. We would just create another button that says esports, and then we just figure out the appropriate waterfall for the development. But the sports books aren't carrying it. Caesars doesn't want it. DraftKings doesn't want it. Do they down the road? Maybe. I don't know. But until they knock on our door and say, "Hey, we'd like you guys to carry this too," we're just kind of, we're just watching it from the sidelines.
You brought up an interesting point. I haven't thought about it that way before. And probably if you try to buy someone who doesn't make that much, yeah, maybe they'll say yes more easier than LeBron. And if you try
Yeah.
to scare them off, maybe to meet them in the alley, hey, you need tools for us. If you're LeBron, you're probably gonna get punched by him. But if it's some 15-year-old kid,
Yeah.
yeah, you're gonna scare
Yeah.
him off.
Right. And there are some sinister folks out there that are in this world. And part of the reason the regulatory framework was set the way it was and the Supreme Court legalized it 6-3 was because there were some bad actors getting
Yeah,
involved into underground sports betting, if you will. And the best way to clean that up is to legalize it. And now let's go find the bad actors. And we like that we're on the good side of it. We like that we're on the regulated side, and we want to work with the hardworking, honest folks that want to sit at their house and just put some money on the game, $50 or $25 or $5 or whatever their budget is that's within their comfort level, and they have no fear after. And when they win, they get money in their account immediately. And they can leave it there, they can draw it down, they can do whatever, or they can go get an extra beer for the weekend. But that's their call. But it's all legal, and we're taxing it. And the states are doing really well as a result of it, and it's helping fill in a lot of the COVID pandemic gap from a financial standpoint that these
yeah.
states have incurred and the debt they've incurred. A lot of that is starting to get cured because of the sports betting. The state of Ohio, in their first year, it was something like $121 million of tax revenue they got.
That's a lot.
Just tax revenue the state of Ohio got. $121 million. That's money they wouldn't have had otherwise. What can they do with it? $121 million. Roads, schools, sewers, all kinds of good stuff for the community. And that's just as long as it's honest people doing it the right way. Great. $5 of their $100 win is going to help build roads. Well, you just won $100. You're happy to pay that $5 tax to the state to allow you to have some fun.
I'm just thinking about ways on how to scare esports players. I mean, you can be at the sidelines and you can call their
Yeah.
name, "Hey, John," and you just try to win. And they're gonna lose.
Yeah. Well, I see your chair, so I'm guessing you've played some esports before.
I'm a kid, so I'm playing
Yeah.
some, but most of it is just the whether or not stuff. The stuff that gives you if you are from the army PTSD, but
Mhm.
but I don't play that
That's right.
sport kind of things. It's addicting too much.
Yeah, no, it is. It is. All of a sudden, you can have 5 hours of your night gone, and you're going, "Holy cow! It's midnight. I needed to go to bed 2 hours ago."
Yeah, and you feel horrible
Yeah,
after.
yeah,
Yeah,
because it drains you. It's a dopamine drain. You know, it really it's intense. Done in the right circumstance, it's fine.
yeah.
But like anything else, like anything else, it's moderation, right?
And I just realized you can easily fake those esports game. Maybe you can have some guys who pretends they're playing, but the real players are
Yeah,
in the back.
yeah. How do you know that the data is not being rigged, and how do you know that the screen you show
Yeah,
that they don't slow down the player on the other side, that the software's been hacked? It's
there's a lot of
as real as
variables.
watching two people do this, but whatever's going on the screen, So I just to your point, there's just so many
Yeah,
different variables.
you know,
So until Caesars and MGM and DraftKings and FanDuel call us up
yeah,
and say we want you in, we're okay just hanging out with them in the meantime with live
yeah. And
sports.
there's a lot of. I think it was a few years ago. There's multiple people who was caught cheating on the main biggest events. They just had a file on
Mhm.
their computer and they can cheat on that. And that's so easy to cheat on, it's not even worth it.
Yeah,
Do you
there
think
you go.
your experience in new edge marketing give you a distinct advantage in what you are currently doing right now?
Yeah, I think really just my overall I think just business and life experience of managing and leading and being a teammate, going all the way back to the football stuff too. And I know we keep coming back to it, but I mean it is. It's like guys, one of my great business partners went through the military. He played college football as well, and he's got that same mentality. And our co-founder and CTO. He has deep tech background and expertise in international business, and I think really those experiences just allow me, perhaps, to be able to communicate better with them, relate to their cultures, relate to how what they're looking for out of life and out of a business can help achieve their goals, because certainly my personal goals are different than yours and they're different than anybody else's, right? But if we can utilize what we're building at Atlas World Sports to achieve all of our personal goals, or at least our top couple, I think anybody would jump on board for that, right? And even though it's going to be hard work or whatever, but heck, you're going to work hard in life no matter what. You might as well do something where the reward could be awesome on the back end, and you're going to meet incredible people and learn a ton, and then on the back end you could take that anywhere. That can't be taken from you. So whatever's in your brain, you own that. Nobody can ever steal what's in your brain from you. That's the one thing that people always forget, I think. Positive energy and the vision and creative energy, whatever's in your brain, John Paul, whatever's in my brain, nobody can steal that from us, right? The only thing they can do is make us expire. But outside of that, nobody can take that. So everything I've learned, and now it's up to me how to figure out how to put those pieces together and utilize them to build something great in Atlas World Sports. And what I've really found is the better people I can get, the more I get out of the way, the more successful we are. And then I kind of keep finding more people and doing things like this, talking with you, for example, where I get the great opportunity to sit with you and get to know you, learn what makes you tick, and then you never know where our paths cross down the road, but it's already a positive experience. So 2 years from now, maybe we're expanding into the Philippines, and I say, hey, John Paul, we want to get out there. Hey, can you be our point guy out there or whatever? And you're before you know it, you're introducing us to Manny Pacquiao or whatever, and we're off to the races. You're making a bunch of money, and Atlas continues to expand. You just never know, right? So I just believe you have to be careful because people will try to take advantage of you throughout, but you have to allow people a little bit of rope or benefit of the doubt, if you will, and then you kind of got to trust your instincts, and you just kind of quietly separate yourself, and they don't know where or why you disappeared, but you know why. And and so it's kind of the culmination of all my experiences, and it's not something you get in any one place, whether it's from school books and learning business or from a company or this, but it's really about taking that amalgamation of information together and then figuring out how to make something great with that. I think that's the gift that we all have. It's just, what do you want to do? And are you willing to take the chance and go after what your dreams are?
That's what I like about entrepreneurs. Maybe they didn't like school so much, maybe they didn't like that thing so much, but when they find the thing that they're absolutely in love with, they can do it 24/7, which is fascinating.
Yeah.
The
Yeah, absolutely. I
yeah,
mean, same thing. I'm always thinking about this all the time. I wake up and go, maybe we should do this with the app or do that. And yeah, absolutely. It's a passion too.
yeah, and the crazy thing is, if you're going on a vacation, you're not thinking of the vacation. You're so guilty about taking the vacation because you
Yeah.
have things to do. That in the vacation, you're thinking of what things you can do back in the office, which is
Yeah.
crazy.
Well, my wife Marnie, God bless her, she understands when we're traveling
Yeah,
places. Maybe there are times where she goes down to the pool and I say, "Hey, I'll be there in an hour. I got to hop on this call," and I'm sitting in the
yeah,
hotel room, on a Zoom call or doing other things or finishing up some emails, and then I make it down, end up making it down 2 hours later or 3 hours later, or I'm coming home late from work or whatever, or I'm hopping in an airplane. But she understands that.
yeah,
She understands that you gotta that's I love what I'm doing, and I obviously love my family, love my wife, and we've got baby on the way, and all of that. So you put it all together, but it's really for the totality of everybody together, and but you never turn it
yeah,
off. You might be in a place that looks like vacation and beautiful palm trees and ocean and daiquiris or whatever. But there's no vacation
yeah,
because you're doing what you love. So it's a gift, and maybe it's a curse more for the other people
yeah,
around you than it is for the entrepreneur, because the entrepreneur loves it, but sometimes other people don't understand. They're like, you, you could do that tomorrow.
yeah.
Well, no, I can't, because my brain is right now. I got to catch this. I got this idea and this energy, and I know if I follow this through, tomorrow I might wake up and
Yeah.
it might not be the same way.
One way that I do to actually make me think better is I go outside. Maybe I go on a trip that makes me feel
Yeah.
so guilty that my brain works overtime. It's crazy.
Yeah, and that's great. And like what you've done, you've built a great podcast and a successful series, and you're going to continue doing it and building your
Yeah,
career as a result of it. And wherever you go, you're
yeah.
learning every step of the way. But yeah, you're constantly grinding, and I give you a lot of respect for that as well.
What's your goal maybe in the next few years for Atlas World Sports?
Our goal is, first, really just do great in the United
Yeah,
States, really drive users, and get into the hundreds of thousands, which we know how to get there. We know how to achieve
yeah,
that, so we're not concerned. And we'll really, once we get that going, we've got the revenue model. We'll turn it on. We'll have subscribers, but also we get paid by the sports books. We have partnerships. So the cash
yeah,
flow is really going to go in 18 months from when Series A is
yeah,
complete. That won't take long, but then from there, it's expands for the Americas. We're already in talks with folks from high levels of all of the Central and South American countries that are worth getting into, that are a good fit for us. Mexico to Argentina to Colombia, Panama, Brazil, and so we're very excited
yeah,
about all that. Costa Rica, yeah, so our real goal is take care of the United States, but then expand through all
yeah.
the Americas, Canada, of course, included too. Didn't mean to leave them out, but we really think all of the Americas. There's a massive opportunity, and then we believe we can really take this thing to Asia down the road, and we would love to find a proper partner, whether it be out of Japan or South Korea through Samsung or whomever it might be. But this is a fit for somebody over there to really help us dominate the sports betting markets over there as well.
There's a lot of money in Asia. Gotta just tell you that right now.
There, there's big time money and there's
Absolutely.
big time sports betting and betting in general, gambling, and I mean, it's great. I mean, anytime I'm in Las Vegas, it's fun asking people where they're from, and I just got in from Hong Kong, I got in from Tokyo, I got in from Seoul, Manila,
Yeah.
wherever, and they're having a blast, and they're not even leaving the
Yeah.
casinos. They're like, we don't even go to the shows. We don't do this. We just want to sit here, play pie gow, play
Yeah.
blackjack, or go into the sports book, and they're loving it, and it's great. And I have a lot of fun with all of them because I learned so much and really enjoy my time with all of them as well.
Yeah, on a personal note, I know there's a lot of money in Asia because I remember I was on a vacation a few months back. My grandmother told me, "Are you gonna try and move to America? Because that's where big money is." And I just pointed at the direction. Do you see that? Yeah, they're building some buildings over there. I said, there's no land over there. They're building
Yeah.
lands. They're putting sand in deep waters
Yes.
just so they can expand the city to build these
Yeah.
massive cities and then expand more. The money is here. I'm not gonna leave.
It is incredible. Well, I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Crazy Rich
Yeah.
Asians, but that's one of my favorite movies. I just think it's incredible, and I believe they were in Singapore. Is that right,
Yeah.
where the family was
Yeah.
from? But there is incredible amount of business and money over
Yeah.
there. And my father has a business where he has offices over there, and so he's very familiar with it. And yeah, I think he's been to China
Yeah.
now, somewhere in the 60 times or whatever through his career, and South Korea, and Japan, and Philippines, India. I mean, there's just a ton of money over there as well. So, so we just want to go and be partners with them, and we're willing to take a back seat because that is not my culture. So I know that we have the software though we could plug into that, and however we have to adjust it, we own the software, so we could flip it to make it work with any culture and country, and with the right partners in each region. That's what we're really excited about. So I think the next 3 to 5 years for us is going to be a blast because it's just we're in this space that it's really the imagination is our limit
Yeah.
and nothing else.
Yeah. And I like your mentality because you're one of those guys who will work 24/7 to achieve things. So I know you're gonna be successful in whatever you do.
Thank you. Well, that's how we're here,
Yeah.
right? Just like you.
Yeah, unlike those other people who, when you ask why they want to start a business, so I could sit on the beach, you'll fail.
Yeah. No. And honestly, like if a deal came by, I mean, that's the thing. If a deal came by, you asked this question earlier,
Yeah,
and I'll just jump to this because if a deal came by that we couldn't refuse, we ended up taking it. Even if I had, the gigantic boat, the yacht, the jet, the this and
oh, you're
that,
gonna be back on
I think I
business.
could
You're gonna be
I
back.
think I could play with those. Yeah, I could play with those for 2 weeks or something and play a couple golf courses that I've always wanted to play my life throughout the world,
Yeah,
like Ireland or Scotland or whatever. Come over. I've heard some of the Japanese golf courses are amazing. They follow you with scissors behind you and cutting grass, and I just heard the experiences. So you get a couple of those, and I'd go, okay, what are we going to do next? And what company are we going to create next?
yeah.
Right? Like
You're gonna build
that
another one
that would be
after
me
that.
because yeah, yeah, absolutely. So people that get in it for money, I think they're the ones I always think they never make it because they really don't try to understand the customer and the
Yeah,
marketplace, and they're trying to do it like business school
yeah,
taught them, where it's like, oh, this the Excel spreadsheet says do this, so cut costs here and you'll do it. Well, guess what? Your customers aren't happy with that your
yeah,
service just went down. You're saving money on your bottom line, but then those customers next month or next year don't come back, and then you lose
yeah,
them, and then the business goes down, and you close up, and you go, "Geez, we did everything right. We did everything that Harvard MBA taught us to do, or our Wharton taught us to do this." And it's you have to have brains and you have to have heart, though.
yeah,
So you have to have this feel and instinct, and that to me is what's fun about business. And if there's the payday there, and that's fantastic, right? But if we do this right, that's all going to
yeah,
take care of itself. And that's what, but I think the opportunity in the sports betting market to just be really great and help all these users around the United States and then around the world have an incredible experience and a safe
yeah.
one, and no We're their partner. We're unbiased. We don't care if you bet with Caesars tonight or MGM, but we want you to be safe and have a good time and make money. And the sports books want us to do that too.
Yeah.
So if we do that the right way, the money's going to take care of itself.
Yeah.
We don't have to worry about that
Yeah.
because anybody with a brain would put money behind us because you bet winning horses. You don't bet on other things. You don't bet on business models. You bet on people at the end of the day. We're still in the people business. And, we work our business to make sure that the users are who we're building this for. And that marketplace
Yeah.
is incredibly huge. And we're going to have all this data and we're going to help make their experience better every single time.
Absolutely. And that's why I know that when I started to be fascinated about business a few years back, didn't go to business school. I dropped out because I want to do business. I'm gonna try and fail and learn on my
Mhm.
own. And I'm
Yeah.
doing decent, but you still have a lot to learn.
You're doing great though, but what you're doing is, learning comes from everywhere in life. Learning doesn't come only from school.
Absolutely.
People think that because they were taught something in school, that's therefore the answer to
It's
everything.
not.
And that's not true. And as an entrepreneur, and you know this as an entrepreneur, there are like five answers to
Yeah.
everything, if not more. And so what it really is maybe one answer that works for me isn't the same answer that works for you. And so you kind of figure that formula out. And then once you get that confidence to say, the books give you a good foundation, but then you have to
Yeah.
mold from there. You have to be a bit of a chameleon and change your skin color from time to
The book
time. And
doesn't
really
give
it's
you
not
the
because you're
variables.
yeah, and it's not because you're not true to who you
Yeah.
are. It's because you're adjusting to the environment around you, right? Like if we go to Asia to do business, we have to consider ourselves and carry ourselves much different than we would in
Yeah.
America. Maybe in America we have to be a little bit more braggadocious and loud and or whatever, or our
Yeah.
marketing maybe has to be a little bit more in your face. Whereas in Asia, maybe it's a little bit different, and in different countries in Asia or South America, for that example, totally different in Colombia than marketing to somebody in Argentina. And we have to be, we have to be very conscious of
Yeah.
that. But that's because you're there for the right reasons. And to your point, you don't learn that in
Yeah.
school. You learn that in real world.
Absolutely. You're there to serve the customer's needs, not your own.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's exactly right. And so I give you a lot of credit for what you're doing, man. It takes guts, but you're in a special class of people. I will tell you that. And I give you a lot of credit. And you're going to do great in whatever path your life takes as you go, and make adjustments and more successes. And lots of failures along the way too,
Absolutely.
right? You can't fail. That's the thing.
Yeah, awesome. And do you have any last message to anyone who might be listening?
I think the real message from Atlas World Sports and where we're at, our ultimate
Yeah.
goal is to be the partner of all of the users and all of the sports books and all of the leagues. And we're the central nervous system for everybody. That's really where we go. And if we're serving all of them, which we can do it the right way in a safe environment, everybody's going to have a great experience. And we're going to do this over and over and over again. And we're going to be the unbiased partner for everybody. And we're going to really end up dominating this marketplace because we know how to do it. And it's just a matter of time. And we're going to go after it. And we can't wait for the future, what's around the corner.
Awesome. Where can people find you?
So, atlasworldsports.com is where we can be found, atlasworldsports.com. And, we're headquartered in Chicago, Illinois, United States, for those listening anywhere around the world. And we're right downtown on the river, right on Wacker, 211 West Wacker. So, anybody that's down in that area, and whether you have investors on there or they want to get involved in our Series A at the end, be happy to set them up with our investment bank. Or if they're aggressive enough, and they want to talk to me and get a deal done, we'd be open to that as well. It's just time is of the essence on that kind of stuff because obviously we have a lot of people knocking at the door. So it just really depends on when this podcast comes out, when people hear it. But otherwise, we just hope everybody has a great experience with Atlas World Sports, and you can find us in the App Store as well. Just Atlas World Sports. You type it into the App Store, iOS, you'll find us, and Android, and we're there for everybody. And we can't wait for football season to start up here in the United States. That is.
That's all for today's episode of the New World Podcast. We have explored some fascinating topics with our amazing guests, shedding light on the upcoming New World. If you enjoyed today's episode and today's discussion and want to stay updated the future episodes, don't forget to hit that subscribe button to the podcast. And if you found value on what we have discussed, please consider leaving us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Remember, if you have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover, or if you are interested in being a guest in the future, please feel free to reach out to me via LinkedIn or email me at john.paul@aicynics.com and add New World Podcast, all capital, in the subject line so I can see it. I always love hearing from our listeners. And don't forget to check out our amazing guests. You can find more information about them by the contact details we provided earlier. Again, thank you for tuning in on the New World Podcast. I know your time is very important and I try to always make the next episode better than the last. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, keep innovating. This is John Paul Flores signing off from the New World Podcast.